Hello and welcome to Shy Talk, an Irish history podcast. This week we've got another guest. We've got two more guests, I think, to round out the season, to round out the year. And for our penultimate one, we had Katie Charlwood from the very entertaining Who Did What Now podcast, which, if you like this show, you'll definitely like it. So there'll be a link for that in the description of this episode, as well as links to tickets to our upcoming live shows. We've got a bunch of live shows happening early next year and a few more that we're trying to sort out at the minute. But there will be a link in this that'll bring you to all the tickets, and you can go see us in your town if we are going there, which we might be. I don't know where you live. But this is an episode we did about a guy from the past who went and did something, a classic episode structure. So yeah, enjoy, check out Katie's podcast, and we'll chat to you next week.
Gather around now, you're in for a story. Old tales of lore, all in search of a glory. The history and mystery of lads, lasses and all. Discoveries and voyages, the rise and the fall. Follow me now as we go back in time. We trace the steps of Irish heritage to find. Joseph from Carlisle and Kevin the Dog guide you through the ways of Shy Talk.
Well, listen, we'll edit this one, so you're grand.
Go.
What's your do you want to introduce yourself to one of the cameras?
Probably this one, because
Probably
it's the one that's aimed at me.
Yeah.
It's probably best.
He's a professional, I don't know.
I'll introduce you to this one.
Okay.
You go.
Hi, I'm Katie, your fairly neighbourhood social scientist and host of the History Podcast. Who Did What Now?
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Have we got any taglines or catchphrases?
There you fucking go.
There. Look at that now.
Careful now.
That's really something.
That's bad. We
Ara Jesus, no.
yeah, that is pretty
Yeah.
much.
We definitely do have loads, and we just don't know them. The listeners,
Yeah, I have fuck that for a game of soldiers, which is something I say
Yeah.
every single episode, and everyone is like, I get messages going, what does it mean? We've never heard this before. And I'm like, I don't know, my mum used to say it a lot, and now it's just something I say.
Yeah, fuck that for a game of soldiers.
It just means fuck that.
Means no.
yeah, no.
But I
No.
don't know where the origins of it are. Yeah, I would have heard that a lot growing up as well.
Yeah, it's like, what does it mean?
Yeah.
No.
Well, we're going to talk about some soldiers.
Mm-hmm.
What a segue.
That is smooth.
So I was at a wedding and was drunkenly messaging you about what we would do this episode about. And you said, Lizzie Holloway, the first.
Yeah. Oh, it was. You're like, what do you want to talk about? Like,
Oh,
what
yeah.
are you like paying attention to right now? And I was like, the Irish abroad. Why?
Yeah.
Because it's really interesting.
Sure.
And you had mentioned something, and then straight away I go to murder. I'm like, did you know
Of course, yeah.
the first woman ever to be sentenced to the electric chair in the US,
But not executed.
executed?
Even
She got a
better.
stay of execution.
What's
Yeah.
better than murder? A woman being murdered.
Well, she
No, no,
wasn't
no, no.
murdered because they were like,
No, she murdered a bunch of people.
yeah.
And she
Even
married-
better. What's better than a murderer? A woman murderer murdering women.
No,
Yes.
she murdered men.
I've lost interest.
I know. She ended up, I think, just like marrying and then murdering and then marrying again, kind of like a Black Widow scenario.
Yeah.
But then there was like some bigamy going on, and then one dude was just like, "No, I'm noping out of here," and just
Yeah.
fucked off. Like he was not into it.
We'll probably do that story at some point because it did seem fun. I think they just got to the end. They're like, are we allowed to execute a woman? And then they just got,
I think they went, no,
I don't
oh,
I don't
can't
want
be doing that now.
She did murder a lot of people, but at the same time, she's a lady.
Lady.
And then the second one also got a stay of execution. I think it was the third one. They finally were like, right, let's do
Well,
this.
hold on. Are we going to get into this story? Is this
No,
background?
that's what we could have done.
Oh.
That's what we should do when you invite me down to be a guest on a live show with you sometime at your wonderful venue.
There you go.
Punt Comedy.
And then we were going back and forth on, because I like to try and get the guests to
Do the work for you?
Do the work for you. Yeah, exactly.
I did nothing. And you're
But
just-
I find it's better if they have some interest in what we're talking about, or else it's just a lot of information being thrown at them.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I knew you'd have some area Irish history that you'd like to talk about. So we settled on, Irish mercenaries abroad. And then we picked a guy called George Thomas.
From Tipperary.
From Tipperary, where I was at the time.
Yes.
Which was great.
You're like, I'm in Tipperary.
I'm in Tipperary.
I'm in Tipperary.
I started asking people at the wedding about George Thomas, and they're like, "What?" It's like he was from Roscrea. 200 years ago. Did you know him? And they did
you know of him? And no.
Yeah. I got very excited, and no,
Nobody was interested. It's a wee shame.
not at all. The bride out of the wedding, actually, Joanne, designed our logo for the podcast, which is
Shout out J&L Design.
yes.
Okay, you're going to have to send me some links because I need some stuff done. So.
Oh yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Well, she just got married on Saturday, which means
I mean, she'll be busy right now, but like I feel like she'll have some free time.
I've seen a lot of 80s stand up. I think once you get married, there's just you've got nothing but free time.
Yeah.
You stop doing everything.
That's exactly what life was like in the 80s. Just marriage and then slowly but surely death.
Well, I'll send her on some. We'll send it on to anyone who wants it. Do you want some logo design? Just message us and we'll send you Joanne's details.
Yeah.
I have her address, but
like don't give her address.
Oh.
well, like that's the easiest way to find her.
You heard door-to-door marketing.
I have her parents' postcode and her postcode, so you can pick.
Let's not do that.
Listen, we'll figure
Outside
that out
a house with a boombox, like I feel like it's a bit strong.
It's the boombox. Like, the sort of brand I'm looking for is kind of like chic.
You know, it's kind of like retro.
Yeah.
But not.
Retro, but like sort of 1970s new wave way, but not in a cheesy style.
But like, but funky, but not
funky.
funk.
But not too funky. All through a boombox outside Joanne's house. Anyway, so we picked George Thomas.
We did.
Who I had, I've got a giant document of notes I've been keeping for the last 5 years. And George Thomas had one line in there.
Well, it's good to know that he was in it.
He was it because it is an interesting story. So, right. You ready?
Mm-hmm.
All right. George Thomas is born 1756 into a poor farming family in Roscrea in Tipperary, which even now that's not a good roll of the dice. That's not good. Like,
I mean, I also lived on the Clare Tipperary border, so I can attest to that.
Yeah. I mean, that's not,
I'm never going to be allowed in Tipperary now.
But even like, even people born there now, no one's hanging around Tipperary Hospital being like, "Oh, nice."
What does Clare have? If Tipperary is
more,
it has the Burren.
What about Father Ted's house?
I mean, Father Ted's house. Yeah, that's worthwhile. I feel like I would definitely go there for that.
It's probably the second most photographed thing in Clare.
What's the first?
The cliffs.
Okay. I forgot about those.
Yeah.
I tend to avoid being near cliffs. It's just, I feel like it's hazardous for someone as clumsy as me.
Yeah. But anyway, listen, this guy, 1750s, he's born, hasn't got much going on.
Generally happens.
I don't know,
for the time, that was a big deal.
To be born, pretty
to
exciting.
Be born, to make it outside of infanthood, also 10 out of 10.
Yeah.
I don't know if his mother survived because this is a story from the 1700s, so obviously there's very little written about it. There's
Women
literally
in the past.
nothing. Yeah.
Do they exist? Maybe.
We know that his dad died when he was probably in his late teens, and there's no mention of his mother, so I don't know if she died in childbirth or she was already dead by then. But as rough as being born in Tipperary is these days, back then you've got, the penal laws. It's Protestant time, so being a young Catholic boy, there's not many opportunities. So once his parents die, he heads off to the big city of Youghal in Cork.
Is that how you pronounce it? Because I was looking at it going...
Youghal. I'm going to go with Youghal because this... Yeah, without giving it away, I will not be able to pronounce most of the place names in this story. So I'm just going to, with the ones I know, right? Tipperary, nailed it. Roscrea, not even sure about that one.
I'm also not sure, but I that was what I said to him. I'm like, that sounds...
That's,
about right.
This is going to be...
We may get complaints.
Yeah, sure. If they complain about this and then not... Okay, well, Bristol, that's another one I can name. So he's working in Youghal as a docker. This is around 1776. He's working there for a few years, and then he graduates to working on a merchant ship. So now he's a sailor. And he sails for about a year before he joins the British military or gets press ganged.
Yeah, that's one of the things. I read this brilliant, sort of very flowery thing about him one time, and it was like, did he hear the wondrous stories of life aboard a ship? And it's like, he's a poor illiterate man in a country that is, ruled by an oppressive force.
Yeah.
And he has very little opportunities. And you're thinking, no, he took the opportunity that came to him.
Yeah.
So it is one of those things, you don't know whether he did just, choose to join the Navy or if he was forced into it. But what I found really interesting is that it's the British Navy. When the biggest navy at that time by Britain was the East India Company.
Yes.
And so that's where I'm like, oh, that's interesting, because it's strange that he did end up there instead of on the other. Well, not that strange, but it's just interesting that he ended up specifically on the British Navy as opposed to
the East India Trade,
which was much larger.
Yeah.
And was kind of hiring as many physical bodies as they could.
But I think that whatever Britain saying, the East India Trading Company weren't press ganging people. They were hiring people.
Yeah, they were hiring people, and I think as well with press ganging is it's basically you get them drunk, make them sign something, and this dude can't even write anyway. He probably learned to write his name, if anything.
Sure, yeah.
And then you wake up on a ship, and you're like, you're here now.
We've talked about press ganging before, but basically, it's what kept the British Navy navying. You just round up. I think it was pretty legal.
Well, let's say for some of the audience who don't know what that term means.
It basically just means kidnapping. You go and
but
one of the things was
booze.
you get everyone drunk down the pub. You're like, oh, all right, sailor, you want a pint, and then you buy him a second pint and a third pint, and they wakes up on a ship.
Yeah, like a beer hall push.
Yeah, sure. But they would do. I think it was fairly legal, and it was just conscription, I guess, by any other name. So you just grab people, drag them onto a ship, and they're the part of the Navy.
That's like the history of American militia back in the day for the war. That's the history of conscription with many
which
war.
Which is how the St. Patrick's Battalion. But anyway,
it's
if we weren't doing George Thomas, we were going to be doing the St. Patrick's Battalion.
Yeah, that was one of the other ones. But you had a good point there about because most of this story comes from. At the end of his life, he tells his own life story to his biographer, and most of the stuff comes from there, which means that a lot of his early life is everywhere you read about it online is that kind of flowery, we'll never know if maybe on that small field in Tipperary he once dreamt of adventures at sea. Perhaps his mother told his mother. We don't even know if his mother was fucking
before
dead.
He passed.
Yeah,
did his father, who was a known horse hand, whatever it was.
I think you were saying liar.
Did he train his son to be just as such a horse whisperer as he?
Yeah.
It's all very did he do this? Maybe.
It seems unlikely. It seems more likely that he was very, very poor. He went to the only place where he could get work. He got on a ship and then he was kidnapped. Right, so maybe he joined the military, maybe he got press ganged, but the next bit really makes it seem like he didn't do it voluntarily. Yeah.
Or you can remember how long was the sailing from Bristol to the Indian subcontinent?
Yeah.
Which is what it would have been at the time.
Well, let's look at our giant map. I keep pointing to this map. It's an audio format. Even
it's a
the
map
video can't.
That people cannot see.
No.
But imagine
But if I twist
a map.
If I twist the dial on the side of it, it goes back to the 1700s.
Yeah. When there's just one country, and it's Britain.
And everything below it says, "Here be dragons." And
yes, that's Wales. But so the life of a nun, I guess there's this master and commander and old image of being a British naval officer. But that only works if you are an officer. If you're a guy from Tipperary who can't read or write and was probably kidnapped, it's not good.
Yeah, you're just out scrubbing the poop deck,
Yeah, and the poop deck, very literal.
No, they always say that's why it's great going to England as an Irish person, because they can't tell our caste system. That you could be Terry Wogan or you could be Kevin Larney. People would not be able to tell the difference.
Yeah, but
you could be the scum off someone's shoe or you could be Terry Wogan. they would not be able to tell the difference. So this man could be king of the boats.
Well, listen, you're jumping. Well, he's not king of the boats. Well, we don't know about his time on the ship.
No boat training.
Prince of the boats.
Yeah, there's a line from Navy life is rough. They say that a man in prison had more room, better food, and better company. During the 18th century, scurvy killed more British sailors than wartime enemy action. Now, by the time he would have been, when did we say?
This is 1700s, but I literally was about to be scurvy was my first port of call. It's come back,
Has it?
Yeah.
What now?
Yeah, because kids aren't getting enough vitamin C, so people are suffering from scurvy because nobody will eat a fucking orange. Like,
Nice.
just, I don't know, go to Aldi, get some orange juice, just drink it once a week.
Let's bring back Sunny Delight.
Yeah.
Let's bring, I mean, that is mainly sugar, but
Sunny
also,
D.
but it's very good because then, put some vitamin D in it as well, because we
We'll
don't
make
get
it
the
more
sunshine.
orange.
No.
I'll add more flavor, like color flavor.
Yeah, just diet.
Yeah.
Look, it's better.
I'm pretty sure they got rid of Sunny D for like radiation poisoning or something.
It was I think it was the sugar.
I think
Was
it
it?
was
It
one
was
of the few
just-
things that they, like as a like the entire world said this is so unhealthy. we
Yeah,
can't.
like it's like you're
Legally
you're
classified
just
as
drinking
cake.
straight glucose, man. You can't be having that.
Yeah.
Like our primary schools did it years ago. I mean, maybe not all of them, but my one did. That they were like, and we're a very small place down the country. That they just looked at all of the packaging on, so that
Yeah.
if there's too much sugar, you can't have it. So like fruit roll-ups, like marshmallow squares, like all of those.
Oh, I know those are
All-
amazing though.
Yeah, but I was like, in hindsight, that's a very forward-thinking move. Like the turn of like around 2000, the millennia, that they're
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
do you know
we
what?
had-
There's 100% of your daily sugar in this, and I have to deal with this fucking kid. Like the teacher's like,
They
yeah.
did that to us too, and I went to this. So I went to like a primary school over in Scotland, and then I went to like a national school over here in Donegal, rural, 2 rooms, like proper out in the sticks.
Yeah.
And like the mentor was like, sure, yeah, we're gonna have to cut down on the sweets and the chocolate and the crisps. And I'm there with my Nutella sandwiches, like, oh no,
It's a chocolate spread.
it's a hazelnut spread, damn it.
Yeah.
And then it's like, but you could kill somebody. Anyone here got a nut allergy? No, there's like 5 people in the school. We're fine. There was like 30, but like still.
Sure.
Yeah.
That was, they're called the stuff with nuts out of our school when I was in my last year.
We have
Someone had nut allergy.
yeah. There's a whole, like, most schools are nut-free schools now, which is
Yeah.
good, fine.
Sure.
Let's not kill children because we really want like a Snickers. Like
Yeah.
I feel like that's a good idea, but yeah. But yeah, like they were pouring, like they would like, I remember them pouring like sugar into cups and being like, "This is how much sugar you're consuming," and it's like, okay,
Give me that sugar.
but I need it though because energy.
Well,
Yeah.
because they do that in science as well, in the secondary school with like you get a can of Coke or a bottle of Coke, and then you
Oh,
put
yeah.
like a chicken wing in it, and you come back a week later, and the chicken wing's like completely malleable, and you're like, see, this is what happens if you leave a chicken wing in your stomach for a week. I'm not eating chicken wings, and if I am, I'm shitting them out within at least a few days. They're not lasting
I'm
a
not
week.
consuming the bones,
Yeah.
first of all, and secondly, I'm not quite. It's like, oh, look what the Coke is going to do to your insides. It's not staying in that long.
No,
Like,
yeah.
I don't know what you think is happening, but the
It's
body
just-
doesn't work like
If you
that.
put your tooth in a bottle of Coke for like a week, first of all, it's not connected to your gums or anything.
Yeah,
but so you don't
Just
like
brush your teeth.
Yeah.
I know sometimes it's tough, but just
Also, when you're a kid, you get free reign. The teeth are going to fall out anyway. You can, have fun with it.
Also, brush them with Coca-Cola. I've seen how it cleans coins and those dead teeth.
And engines.
Mm.
But listen, they didn't know anything about any of that stuff at
Way
this
back.
time.
Yes.
Way back. I did do a brief skim of the history of scurvy, and it was
Mm.
around about within a decade of him, they had solved it. They were experimenting with what if we ate fruit, and I
What
think
if we
they
did
figured-
nothing?
What if we did nothing?
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't write the guy's name down, but he basically like he just did experiments on his crew where he had a load of different, vinegar, citrus, load of different things. Like, which one of you guys is going to survive? Which apparently, I don't know if this is true. That's where the phrase "limey" comes from for like British people.
I think so.
Yeah, that they ate citrus.
I would have to look it up, but I think so.
That's one of those. Yeah, I don't know.
I heard a man on the street yesterday down on Dame Street say, I'm not even messing, man. Salt and vinegar, I'd put that in my spaghetti bolognese.
Nice.
And now I'm like,
Curious.
he was drinking a 2 litre of Linden Village straight from the plastic bottle,
Yeah,
which also looked great.
maniculture.
Maniculture. I'm willing to try it.
Yeah,
Because what if salt and vinegar chips?
this is brown sauce and
Fantastic.
tea all over again.
Yeah. Now what about brown sauce and salt and vinegar pasta?
Yeah. Well, listen.
You're like, can we get back on track? Stop segueing. It's just. Sorry, carry on.
It's I don't know how to segue. My brain's not segueing.
So basically,
It's a balance thing.
he leaves the Navy.
He gets so he heads over to India, as we can all see in this map, is a long old distance from Bristol. And yeah, he's around 1781. They dock in Madras, which has changed its name to
Chicken mattress.
Chennai. Well, it's where Madras curry is from.
Mhm.
So he was hanging out there. He's around 25 at this stage. walking around. You'd imagine it's pretty. Like, even though, you know, he's an adventuring sailor and he's had a life at sea, he's had a life between Tipperary and Bristol, which is not, you know.
It's a very different culture.
Yeah, but imagine him getting off dock in Bristol and be like, wow, to chimneys and smoke, and I don't think I'll ever see anything as mad as this again.
But also
Bristol
Bristol accent.
It would have been a city, though.
Huh?
Bristol would have been a city.
No, I know, and that would have been crazy enough.
Yeah.
But then to like go to Madras, India, and be like, "What the fuck is happening?"
Like everything, it would be like so different for him.
Yeah, insane. But for some reason, he sees all this and he's like, "I want this as opposed to the Navy." So he runs away. He deserts the Navy, which does lead into the theory that he was kidnapped as opposed to joined.
Yeah, and the punishment for abandoning your post in the Navy, death.
Yes,
So pretty risky.
pretty risky. He doesn't know anyone, but he meets another Tipperary man called Kelly. Apparently,
Because of course you do.
Of course.
Have you ever? I used to date an awfully man, and every time we left the country, we would always find another awfully man. Like every single time. I don't know what it is about that side of the country, but just
You're always wearing the county colours.
there's always one. We always find one. It's just everywhere.
Yeah. Well, he spot. Well, I mean, I guess by
I
then,
suppose he's one of
he's the only white.
The pale redhead in the corner. It's just, sure, he's from Tipperary. Like.
Everybody kept calling him Kelly, and he's like, "Oh no, it's that other guy from Tipperary." Well, they find each other. He points him in the direction of the Polygar chiefs. So he decides to run away. He joins up with these chiefs. He couldn't speak the language, but at the time, everyone associated white people with European military people.
Yes.
They assumed that he was good at military, even though he didn't really know anything. But they took him in.
Turns out he learned things pretty quickly, though.
Yeah, so
He was a quick learner.
He was a quick learner.
Sounds like he's better than the military. He's able to evade the military.
That's true. He's on the run from the military. Which, to be on the run from the
and
British
is
military,
still alive, which I've been led to believe is the punishment for running away.
That's
Yeah,
true.
I mean, he is doing very well so far.
And yeah, so this is the stuff about like his dad was a great horseman. His dad probably saw a horse when he was a kid.
Sure, did you see that horse up the road? Whose horse is that? Like
Yeah.
it's
It had 7 legs, as big as a house it was. But so he's got that skill. Maybe he starts to learn close quarter combat and different bits with these guys. So in the late 1700s, India, it's a crazy time. The Mughal
Indian
Empire,
subcontinent.
the Indian subcontinent.
Because it's not India yet.
It's not
'cause-
India. That's true.
because the British haven't put the partition in yet.
Yeah. We've still got Pakistan and Bengal, and we'll make a mess of it later on. But
The other areas.
and such. But at the time, so the Mughal Empire is on the way down. The Martha Empire is on the way up. But, you know, as this transitionary period between the two of them, there's loads of principalities and breakaway states and people are declaring independence. And also the British Empire is about to do its own thing.
Yeah, because you've still got the East India Company, which is, I think, Clive, whatever. Oh, Robert Clive.
Yeah.
Bastard. The absolute bastard. I did a whole episode on the East India Company just in the Indian subcontinent because I was like, I can't cover any other countries. I'm barely fitting it into this hour-long time frame. But they're just like, oh, we're going to go in. Oh, yeah, we're going to help you. But then we're going to steal all your shit when you're not looking. So,
Yeah.
and it just kept going on like that. And then they would deliberately try and sort of underhand and break down, you know, certain alliances and principalities and effectively regions and try and put, you know, people they liked in the ruling places.
It's amazing to travel all over the world and learn literally nothing about the people that was there.
Yeah.
This is the same as, I guess Northern Ireland, Palestine, India, all these places. When the British eventually left, they were like, I've never spoken. I don't know what was here before. Let's just draw a line down the middle. See how that goes.
Let's
Probably
see.
fine.
It's fine. We built a railroad and it's good.
Yeah. They're all the same, all these brown people. They're probably all fine with each other. It's just done. Thanks. Where would you be without the railroads?
Like, where would they wouldn't get from A to B, that's for sure. I mean, Jesus Christ.
We brought you British culture, things like tea and opium, which we got from you. But
yeah, it's like, oh, you know, we went and we invaded and we took all your spices and then we didn't use any of them in any of our dishes. Like,
yeah. Well,
Add tikka masala.
yeah, Madras curry.
yeah, well, Yeah, but that was when immigrants came over. It's like, could you imagine? I love it when people are like, oh, these immigrants coming in here doing all this. And I'm like, okay, you're never allowed to curry again.
Yeah,
no more
yeah.
curry for you. No tea. You want to...
No, that's no opium. Try that.
I mean, yeah, no opium for you, sir.
Where would you live your life without hash and heroin?
Did you ever hear about the opium war and the rhubarb situation with Queen Victoria?
No.
Okay, so fun fact. There's this, obviously, they're flooding China with opium, and China's like, can you not do that, please? And so they end up sending a letter to Queen Victoria because they are supplying Britain with rhubarb, right? And rhubarb is a diuretic.
Yeah.
So basically, they write a letter saying that if they don't stop, flooding China with opium, they're going to, halt the sale of rhubarb into the UK or Britain at the time.
Yeah.
And effectively kill the country by constipation. But like no one ever actually physically gave this letter to Victoria, so she never read it.
Yeah.
Not that, in fairness, she probably couldn't read
Yeah.
the Cantonese or whatever
Sure.
Mandarin it was written in. But still, the fact that they were like, we're going to give you constipation.
They thought that was the only way they could shit.
Yeah.
Well, because have you seen a British diet? Like
That's
a lot, it's
yeah.
very stodgy and it's very heavy a lot of the time. But it's
But
because
if you
most
just-
people were working and they needed, like people in mines needed a
some
good
bread
heavy
and
meal.
whatever, yeah.
That's a funny thing to
But if you
drink
just pull the stick out of their arse, it should be.
You would think.
Yeah.
But yeah, I
Or the
always found
rhubarb,
that like
as
a
the
really
case may
funny.
be.
But it was just like,
Yeah.
we're
They
gonna,
tried to combat opium with rhubarb.
yeah.
Huh? But well, yeah. So our boy Thomas, Jesus, I can't segue at all. Rhubarb. That reminds me of Rudyard Kipling,
Who was in India?
who wrote a story called "The Man Who Would Be King," which is an awful lot like our boy George Thomas.
Yes,
That was pretty good.
that was
Yeah.
smooth.
God damn.
Stay on track. You got to keep
Got
going.
it, right.
Keep going.
Okay.
You got this.
So he's hanging out with the Polgars. Maybe he's good at horses. He learns to be anyway. He's good at fighting. He becomes good at leading military guys. Yeah. So a lot of this time.
Do you think he's
in
only
his
good at
life-
horses because he only tells you when he wins?
Yeah. You don't see the losses. As far as I'm aware, he gets it right every time. Oh, he moves from he moves from the region with the Polgars up further north. He joins in with the army of the Nizam of Hyderabad, and he expands his military knowledge, becomes more of a leader figure. Here he gets close to a group of Pindaris. So I don't know what you would say, but like trying to read about the Pindaris, there's a bang of colonial writing about them. Everything that's written about them is that they were like, unscrupulous bandits, only fought for money, couldn't be trusted. But I don't know. I'm sure if you met an Indian person-
mercenaries is kind of
Yeah.
like they were soldiers for hire.
they were soldiers for hire. They seem to get paid not in money, but like loot,
Well,
plunder.
plunder.
Yeah.
The term
Well, look,
is
Tom's-
like mercenary in general historically is pretty stupid. Apart from like unless you're talking like I guess our idea is like the black op covert people
Yeah.
like that. Like
Yeah.
realistically, it's anyone who's ever joined a war ever that is
Yeah.
joined for money.
Money,
That
as
like
opposed
unless you've
to-
been 100%
Well, yeah, it's-
conscripted
That's
by
a
your
good-
nation,
yeah.
that
Well,
like
that's it. It's a soldier for hire as opposed to being a soldier for a nation or for a king or
Yeah.
for that. It's like
But if you
It
did
was
like for the
this,
people who are in the army, if they were being paid half of their actual wage, like today, they wouldn't be in the army.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they're all mercenaries.
That's a
So
good. Well, yeah, because everyone
They
you're
would go and join
conscripted
it.
in-
They would join a different army
Yeah,
for better pay,
yeah.
like they often do.
yeah.
Would you get? Yeah, you get scripted in, and you're stuck in the military, and you already know what
Like a lot of people
Britain is.
end up in the military either because of poverty,
Yeah,
which is the main one, or in some countries because of aggressive patriotism,
Sure.
nationalism, which is one of those things I don't really get patriotism, but again, I'm like part Irish, part UK, so I'm like,
that's the beauty of being Irish. Like, what is country pride?
yeah, it's
What-
like,
what-
I can kind of be proud of Scotland, but like the rest of it, I mean, Wales is nice. You know,
They're
that's-
nice, but
They're
I mean,
they're out now. They're out with the Celtic Brotherhood or siblinghood, or whatever we're calling it.
Well, yeah,
Don't like the Welsh anymore.
What did they do?
They're
now?
more English than they are Celtic.
Well, I mean,
They
in
defend
fairness,
England.
Well,
They suckle off the teeth.
No. It's funny. Clearly, I'm in different Welsh circles than you because all the Welsh people I talk to are like Cymru and they're learning Welsh and they're all like promoting it. I clearly don't vibe with anybody else. I just ignore them.
More of like the Cardiff, Swansea people who come out, like the Love Island types of just a lot of fake tan, fake white teeth. Come over to Dublin for a holiday for like the bachelor party. A lot of those Welsh. They're basically worse than the English.
Would you stop talking about my wife? She's I don't. But the Welsh have better control over. Yeah, they've kept their language.
They kind of fought to keep it though.
Yeah.
And I just think Ireland is a bit too chilled about it. They're like, we kind of like it. But my favorite thing was back when I lived in Clare. Actually, was there. I remember these fellas would be like, because they would call me an Anglo, which is, they're an Anglo, and I'm like, I speak more Irish than you, motherfucker, like, Kajema or tattoo, like, what the fuck, anyway, and they'd be like, well, we don't speak our language because the English stole it, and I was like, you have had options, like, you can learn it from Duolingo now, no offense.
Yeah. Like, you can,
I mean, it's not great, but, like, it's a good starting point, because obviously I speak what I do speak is the Ulster dialect. So mine is different to most people's anyway. And it also sounds really funny coming out this mouth.
Sure.
It's just my accent. I say English words wrong. Poem, right? But why is there a Y sound in there? Road. There's not meant to be an extra syllable in that word either.
Yeah.
So when I speak Irish, it also sounds weird.
I do, I'm a tour guide during the day and I do too long of a bit now about like, right, the English stole the language. That was 150 years ago. You really can have.
You can learn some words now.
It'll easily, like everyone blames the famine. That was a good while ago. We've had control of the country for a good 100 years now.
It's the way that it's taught in schools.
That's what people say as well. Also,
it is the way.
When someone moves to another country and they learn the language, they're not like, French was taught badly in school. I'll just speak English in Paris for the rest of my life. But you can do it.
What also was taught like really badly to me in secondary school? Every single subject I had, it was the Irish educational system in a rural place, like in Carlow.
What's 4 plus 4? Huh? There you
go. I told you I don't speak Irish.
It's like because I live on the outskirts of the Gaeltacht anyway. So like, in fairness, my old postman was the only person I ever spoke Irish to because no one else in my family can speak a lick of it.
Yeah.
And now I've got to learn it for my kids. So like, I'm trying to convince my boss that we take Irish lessons together so we can do it. Let's do conversational Irish together, and that way we'll be able to help the kids with their homework. It's going to be great.
Yeah.
We had flirted with the idea of learning the language and give it a year and do a live podcast in Irish.
Yeah.
There's so much effort for we just do it in the language we speak.
I've been learning it for the last while, but I've kind of slowed off now. But on one of these tours, I don't know if they were from Wales, but they asked me in the middle of my Irish language thing, like, why can the Welsh speak Welsh and you guys can't speak Irish? And I just said it's because the Welsh never rebelled against the British Empire, so they were allowed to keep their language, whereas we did, and it was taken away from us. And I said that with a degree of confidence. That is so wrong.
Oh, that is so wrong.
That's a bit of propaganda.
You
I heard
just tell
at some
from
point.
my face, and I'm just like,
yeah.
Didn't they just historically make it like the language of trade and business?
It was
that they had to do that for like the ports. That's how they brought it in with the ship workers.
I spent a long time reading about it then afterwards, and really it boils down to like it was the Catholic Church's fault that the church here didn't do anything through Irish. They did it through Latin or English, whereas the church in Wales made a more concerted effort to do stuff through Welsh.
Well, that was because when Anglicanism came around, what they did was one of the whole points of it was that the Bible could be read in whatever language you wanted.
Yeah.
So when they did it in Welsh, we'll translate it into Welsh. It's absolutely fine. And Catholics are still being like, Dies Domine, like, oh.
Yeah. And there's a few
That's from Monty Python. I don't know Latin.
There's a few other reasons, and it was associated with obviously the Gaelic areas get hit harder by the famine. Those people who can speak it either die or emigrate. It becomes associated with poverty. So, but it is funny to be like, we all think that we don't have biases or stuff, and then we can't speak Irish because we're too cool, and the Welsh are little fucking clowns, and that's why they can speak it.
See, this is why I always argue that I'm like one of the best people to talk about sort of that aspect of history, especially when it comes to British colonialism in Ireland, because I was socialised and had my primary education in both the UK and Ireland. And I have studied history and sociology in both the UK and Ireland. So it's easier to see the bias in both sides.
Yes.
Because I've had it shouted at me from both ends, and it's like, no, so like technically my area of expertise...
both sides of the English are biased?
Hiya. All of them. Everybody hates London. Because my technical area of expertise is the rise of sensationalism and the use of print propaganda in the late modern period. So like my whole thing is propaganda, misinformation, disinformation, all that stuff. So I spend a lot of time fact checking and then looking at where is this source coming from.
Sure.
Like why? Like there's this theory. I can't remember the name of the theory, but it's known as the Black Swan theory by me because I don't remember the actual
Where is this
term.
information coming from?
I learned in my psychology class was it sociology? It was in one of them, right? And basically the whole concept is that in order to try and prove something is wrong, you have to try and prove that it's right.
Okay.
So you basically have to act against your natural instincts to fight against bias.
Yeah.
So you want to prove that there are no black swans in the world, then you have to go looking for a black swan.
Yeah, you have to go out of your way to... Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so you have to try and force yourself to look and not to like avoid things. So it kind of pushes you into that sort of idea.
I feel like I did. I tried to get myself into the mindset of a Welsh person. And, you know, after having sex with that fourth sheep, I was like, it's just not worth it. I'll just say I don't know if the question
I can't have any more daffodils anymore. It's just too much.
Is that their thing? Daffodils?
Yes, daffodil is the national flower of Wales.
Do they piss themselves a lot? No, that's the other one.
That's a dandelion.
That's dandelion.
Dandelion. It's a dandelion.
No, that's your...
I was more of a bean.
I'm just like really angry about this. I was like, out of everything so far, I'm like, no, it is a dandelion. Don't fuck up the flowers. You hold the buttercup under your chin to see if you like butter for whatever reason. Why?
Everyone likes butter. Everyone likes butter.
A dandelion just sounds like a British lion.
But dandelion, that actually comes from like French.
Does it?
I think so. I feel like it does, but I need to look it up.
They're a bunch of dandies?
Maybe.
It's because of it's something to do with what it does because it has certain properties. Because I don't know. I have to look up my book, How to Grow Your Own Drugs.
Yeah. But it's one of the drug flowers.
It is one of the drug. Most of the flowers are drug flowers.
Yeah. That's why the British Army wears poppies to commemorate all of the opium they got from Afghanistan.
Ooh.
Right now, so
back to the story.
Speaking of the Afghan region, Thomas he ingratiates himself in with this group of Pindaris who will just say, they're mercenaries. They're
soldiers for hire.
He gets closer to them to the point where he's calling them his Irish Pindaris, and he becomes their sort of de facto leader. And now we jump to 1787. He's 32, and he's leading this group of Pindaris up to Delhi, basically, the northern part of the subcontinental India. He's still right. So all the sources keep talking about how he's illiterate. Everything keeps saying he's illiterate. It wouldn't make a difference, even if he could write and read English.
But
he's been in India.
Hindustani.
He knows Hindustani. Well, so again.
So this is it. Well, this is what's told, because that's what they spoke.
Yes.
Specifically that, and it was also very up in that sort of upper region of the subcontinent.
Yeah.
So Hindustani is an Indo-Aryan language.
Of course.
Basically, I see it more like one of those bridge languages.
Yeah.
Sort of. I've had people argue that it's not a real language. I'm like, it's like Hiberno English. It's still English.
Sure.
But it's Hiberno English.
Yeah.
You know, it's just a different form of it. So I think it's probably closer to that. Not that I'm a linguist of any.
Yeah. But you've got this huge area with all these different peoples. So you're going to have like bridge languages. And
they're just easier to. It's kind of like if you speak Dutch, you can understand like a little bit of German and a little bit of Swedish.
Sure.
Because they're all kind of similar in a lot of their phrasing and terms. So it's like, you know, it works.
But then he also, so suppose, well, this is jumping ahead a little bit, but then he becomes fluent in Persian as well. Because he's up in the closer to the Persian Empire area. So it doesn't really, I mean, they keep hammering back the fact that like he did all this stuff while not being able to read English. But like just fucking...
He couldn't read or write English. Does it fucking
They
matter?
wouldn't have been able to... It's not as if the signposts were in English. He wouldn't have been able to write to his troops in English. Doesn't make a difference. But anyway, he's illiterate and he's heading up to Delhi. So he enters there. he enters under the service of a lady called Bigum Samru, aka Joanna Nobilis Somber, aka Farzana Zeb Unisa. So there you go. It's 3 names, all pronounced incorrectly. All this one lady. So she's the small ruler, or sorry, well, actually she is small, but she's the ruler of a small principality in the north of the area called Sardana. So she's got like an interesting side story. I don't know if you read much into her at the time, but she was a tawif or a notch or some sort of ceremonial dancer when she was a teenager, and which is how she met her future husband, the European mercenary Walter Reinhard Somber. So there's I couldn't find
many names. So many names. Not that important though, because you clearly didn't find much information about him. But so many names.
This is only the start of the names.
But to make it easy, Reinhardt. I'll remember Reinhardt.
Well, Reinhardt, you can remember him as there's so many different countries of origin for him. He was somewhere from Europe. He came over. He had a big military. He was this is a tale as old as time though. He was a 45-year-old man. He went down to the sort of kind of red light district, but maybe just dancing district, which is where he found the 14-year-old Farzana and fell in love.
Well, how old was he?
45.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
not great.
They started living together.
Well, let's see if they spend the next 50 years of their life together.
Well, So
he's 45. I don't think he's going to be spending the next 50 years of his life with anybody.
No,
but is he not magic? He's from Europe, right?
He's from Europe. So they start living together. They get married at some point. And she is seen as the brains of the operation. So he has he has an army, and they sort of get used to taking commands from her. So when he dies in 1778. So I don't know what age he is.
She just kind of inherits.
She inherits the army. And it's kind of by the time, in 1781, she's around 30 years old, and she gets baptized by a Roman Catholic priest and changes her name to Joanna Nobilis, and then Somber taking his name. So she's cited as the only Catholic ruler of subcontinental India at the time.
I feel like that feels like a power move to me. It's like, I'm going to do this, but if you want to make people around here Catholic, gonna need some of that moolah, maybe.
Yeah, because she's in contact with the Pope Gregory, whichever one is the time. So she's getting money and stuff
which
from him.
One is he?
The 9th or the 11th? It's got an X and an I in it, but I can't remember which one
I think
it was.
it's. I'm trying to think. Was it the one who had declared war on cats?
Maybe.
Because that's. No, I think that must be the 11th, because I'm trying to think of the Inquisition. I think was round about the 9th.
Yeah, he was.
I have a weird obsession with old popes.
Yeah,
they're great. They're weird as fuck.
That is true.
So many.
Yeah,
they're digging up bodies just so they can put people on trial.
They're racing prostitutes against each other so they can figure out which one's the fastest.
The Feast of Chestnuts may not have actually been true. It probably was, because they were a bunch of weirdos, those Borgias, but like...
But anyway, she's getting money from one of the Gregories. By the time Thomas gets there, she's around 40. She's 4.5 feet tall. She's got a giant turban, rides around on horseback, and she's got the command
she's
of
got
her
a giant turban. Like,
I don't know.
That's where she keeps her secrets.
That's where she keeps her secrets. And like it's just interesting to read this kind of a story from that period of time where obviously all of her troops think that she's a witch, but in a good way.
Yeah, like she's a good witch.
She will smite their enemies, and they're all like very.
You'd rather have that witch on your side.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I feel like if we're gonna have a witch around, you want them to be on your side in general.
So she's been their leader for about 15 years by the time Thomas shows up. So George Thomas and
like a Khaleesi type.
Yeah, kind of.
This is your man.
In that she's a woman.
And that she's a woman
and a witch.
in charge.
And
she's all magic.
Yeah, sure.
Khaleesi just can't get
she's a
burnt.
That's magic.
I mean, I feel like, it's all right. Did you burn your fingers in the stove? No. Magic.
Yeah.
Cool.
Well, so she gets in a couple of. She's got European.
Ton the sausages without burning her hands. It's well handy.
Now I feel like our boy's Captain Frenzo, who played an Irish detective in the 9-part series, Jack Taylor.
There's in
Galway detective.
Yeah, it becomes a kind of
fast.
The Galway detective.
Yeah. Did you ever see Jack Taylor?
Dunno.
3 separate seasons. Every episode's like 1 an hour and a half long. It's in Galway. He's a drunk detective kicked out of the Dublin force, back to Galway, gets Killian Scott.
He's not ginger by any chance.
Kind
is
of,
he?
kind of reddish blondie hair. Is your man from Khaleesi's sidekick in Game of Thrones?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
yes.
Ian Glenn. Yeah.
I
Ian
know
Glenn.
Yes. I know what you're talking about.
Killian
The way you
Scott.
said that, you're like, I know him. He's my neighbour.
I don't know him
Mr. Glenn.
personally. I'm not that. I'm not. I was going to say it's not that. I'm not famous.
I thought Ian Glenn famous.
Yeah,
I'm not even.
Ian Glenn's Scottish Irish. Ian Glenn's another Scottish Irish
Yeah, he's
person.
one of those. He's one of those.
Yeah.
It's from the Glens. Up there.
Yeah.
Well, maybe it is like a Khaleesi's. I don't know. She's got a lot of
Maybe.
generals, and there's a big love triangle, I think, between her, Thomas, and one of her French generals, Levasseur. So, I mean, if you've got to choose between a French guy called Levasseur or some Tipperary man,
Sure, you can't
you're
say no to
going
the Irish.
French
It's a...
every time. So the two of them are like two of her leading generals. At some point, there's power plays and fallouts. She sides or chooses favor with Levasseur. I think they're both trying to like marry her to get control of the army.
Doesn't he end his life though?
Yeah, so this is where the stories kind of diverge. A little bit about him. Basically, she picks him as her favorite, and our boy Thomas leaves with a good few soldiers who were like loyal to him, and he heads off for the rest of our story. But then Levasseur, to continue that bit, a year afterwards, so her troops don't like the fact that she's going to get married to this guy. There's a rumor that they're in a relationship. The troops sort of mutiny against them. The couple tries to run away. Then there's maybe they have a suicide pact. He shoots himself. She lightly stabs herself.
A light stab.
A light stabbing.
Oh.
And then goes back to control of the army.
That's great.
Yeah, so...
She definitely killed him. She definitely murdered him.
No,
right?
well, maybe, or the
I love that you're
theory
just
is
like
that-
murder.
Yeah, it's like, well, he shot himself in the head, and it turns out by stabbing yourself in the bum a little bit, you don't die.
She nicked herself, and he was like, "There's only one way out of this, my love. We must commit suicide together." He shot himself and said, "Right, back to work."
My calf. Does anyone have any plasters?
So this is also, but Thomas, he dodged all that. He heads off with his loyal soldiers, and he starts to work for a guy called Apa Khande Rao, who is a Martha chief general in the Gwalior state. So, as we said a few minutes ago, the Martha Empire is kind of on the rise at this point, taken over from the Mughal Empire, which is in decline, and Gwalior, where they are, or Gwalior, is a semi-autonomous state, and it's like one of, I don't know, it's a leading power in the area at that time, and the British are coming. So he's taking his army and come into like the middle of this whole power play where there's like emperors are going up, emperors are coming down, British are coming, there's wars happening all around. It's a good time to be a mercenary with a load of loyal soldiers.
Yep.
So he fights alongside those guys for the next couple of years, helping to conquer areas in Haryana, which is between Delhi and Punjab in the top north corner of subcontinental Africa.
I love that we've covered, I say we as if I was somehow involved in it, but like half of India is just covered right now with a guitar.
Yeah. That
And
was, I was like, I'll put it in the one spot we'll be talking about.
Just as fine. It's fine. Who needs to?
Well, the guitar perfectly lines up with where he went from. He drops at the coast of Madras and goes up to the Punjab region.
Yes.
That might be right. No one can see it, but...
That might be right. I can't see it from this angle.
So in return for his service during these battles, he gets given the title of Jagir in the town of Jajar. So he basically becomes a feudal lord of the place. And he builds himself a fort called Georgega, which is kind of funny. It's just
It's
his
his
attempt.
name
Yeah, it's
with
an
Ga at the
Indian
end.
kind of...
And then don't they just call it like Jajaha?
Yeah,
or
they
something?
call it like Jahazgra. But it was funny that he tried to like just Indian up his name.
Just we're gonna Georgia.
Joe, it'll be the town of Georgega.
It's fine. It's fine. Well, when people will notice that you're doing this, and it's like, no, everyone will love me. I shall be a Raja.
Yeah, so this is maybe the start of his kind of like ideas of grandeur. So his patron, Apa Khande Rao, dies in 1797, and Thomas takes it upon himself to declare independence from the Marthas. So there's no time to go. So the empire he's fighting for is fighting against the British and losing. and is now also in decline. So I think he sees the opportunity to be like, you know what?
I'm not
Independence
with
Day.
them. I'm on my own, and I think we could strike up maybe an alliance.
Yeah, and he's been working with Begum Sarat for years, so he's kind of familiar with the idea of local chief Raja. So he says, it's good enough for her, it's good enough for me. So he takes over this area, takes control of Rohtak and Hisar, and makes Hansi the capital of his region. So, none of this is ever officially recognized by anybody, but if you call yourself Raja for long enough, people start to take notice. So supposedly he would introduce himself as the Raja from Tipperary, which I've seen written in a lot of places, and I'm going to choose to believe.
Yeah, that is, isn't it in his biography as well that he says that he told people he was the if you're saying, I told people I was the Raja from Tipperary, and being a man from Tipperary, I fully believe that he would say that. Like,
that's a good point,
Fake it
actually. I
till
don't know
you
why
make
I
it.
doubted that.
You tell people that's like having like The Secret, like having like a vision board. You
Yeah.
keep telling people you're the Raja from Tipperary. You put that on your wall. One day you get committed to an asylum.
Yeah, but I mean, they would have no concept.
Now who's winning?
No one would have any concept of what Tipperary was.
3 square meals a day.
Yeah.
No, but like if you're I don't know, from Punjab, like where I'm from, Tipperary.
Yeah,
The green land of Ireland, and they're just like, okay,
that's good.
cool.
Are you in charge now?
That's great. We're good for you, buddy. 10 out of 10.
This fucking English guy won't shut up.
Yeah. But he says,
And then he just gets incensed. Like, how dare you? I don't know why I made an English accent. Oh, that's because I can't do an Irish accent properly. That's why.
well, so he sets himself up as like this mercenary king, and he's constantly fighting. There's a whole load of names and a whole load of areas here that there's no point getting into because I'm going to pronounce them all wrong, and it doesn't matter.
Basically, he's fighting with a load of people.
He's fighting everyone all around him. He keeps trying to make alliances with them to fight against other people, and then going back on that and just fighting everybody all around him. So he gets control of like a fairly sizable portion of the country, maybe like 16 miles in diameter, but it's his.
And it's fairly decent when you don't have anything else. You know, I feel like owning your own little state is pretty good.
Yeah.
For an illiterate farmer.
Sure.
We rent here.
Tipperary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Housing crisis, man. It's tough.
but to establish, he doesn't just, he does start to call himself the Raja, but he does
Does
start
he mint his
printing
own coins?
He mints his own
Yes.
coins. He puts his seal on them, which I guess he's made up because he doesn't have a family crest or anything.
he probably got it designed by
Yeah.
one of his friends.
He just
Circling back to that.
Yeah,
There you
yeah.
go. See?
he starts releasing his own rupees. So he's raised a sizable army. He's got 8 battalions. He's got
Raj
6,000
coin.
men. He's bringing in people from all around the regions and paying them pensions, which is decent of him, I suppose.
Yeah.
All right, but what value does this currency have?
Well, he just made it up, so I
Yeah,
don't know.
so it doesn't. It's not tied to anything.
Well,
not tied to the gold
probably
standard.
Just
Yeah, it's
whatever the rupee is that's the rupee. Like it's
yeah.
But what? Okay, but it's only this
a
16
gold
square.
coin is a
But,
gold coin, and
but what? If he doesn't have allegiances to any other places now, so no
No.
other country would have to respect the things. Anyone fighting on his behalf is like, this money is only worthwhile if we actually win.
Yeah, but they're also spending it within his.
but then it's not as
his
if they have
region.
notes. You remember it's gold
Yeah, okay,
and things.
yeah,
so like
sure,
a gold
yeah.
coin is a gold coin. Doesn't matter whose face is on it.
Yeah.
You can
It's
just
still
smelt
worth
it.
Oh, I
Like-
suppose he's just. Yeah, okay, yeah.
And put
It
it
is still
in
just
the
gold.
place.
Yes.
Well, it's
yeah.
gold. Like,
yeah.
I
It's
feel
not.
like it
It's
doesn't
not a
matter.
currency. It's gold.
Yeah, it's not as if
Yeah.
we're putting
Yeah.
copper and we facing a bit of copper and just being like, that's money. Look, there's
You
a
can-
scientist on a square of paper,
Yes.
a rectangle of paper.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
You can
but
just
like-
bite the gold. It's worth the same everywhere.
yeah.
With what teeth? We've talked about scurvy.
Yeah.
But, there's not a huge amount of sugar in these areas as opposed to sugar which was then being brought back to like England, who just went mad for sugar because they never had it before, and which is why everyone ended up with bad teeth for like
That's why.
100 years.
That's why they had to get rid of Sunny D.
Yeah.
That's why they had to get rid of Sunny D.
But so he's in control of this region. He's the Raja from Tipperary. At some point, he sets up his house. He builds the Jahaj Kochi, which I think he was already there. and he just sort of takes it up as his palace. I
Just
guess.
puts a fence around it and
Just
like, here you go, it's now my palace.
This is now his palace. And he lasts until 1801, which is, pretty respectable. Eventually he gets defeated by one of the many, many enemies that he'd made in the region. A guy called Patila. His army comes in and takes his guns, his throne, his crown. But he's allowed to retire into British territory for some reason. I think they just respect the hustle.
Yeah, they're basically like, yeah, you know what, you did this for a good number of years.
Yeah.
And we're okay with that.
What
so,
are we, like 5 years maybe? But,
It's pretty impressive.
pretty impressive.
Yeah.
They're like, you know what? You got gumption, kid. You're going to go far.
Yeah, we don't care that you
Yeah.
deserted your post in the Navy. We're over it. We're over it.
We need more men like this.
But it's like Catch Me If You Can. You're so good at it, you can't be.
Yeah, he joins Tom Hanks.
That's all made up.
Oh, yeah, sure.
What?
Oh, actually, I saw that you did an episode with Frank Abagnale.
I did an episode on that.
Yeah. It's-
I've seen the movie. It
I
exists.
know. Ironically,
It's
the guy
really
who
good.
became famous for lying to everyone, his biggest lie of all was that the whole thing been...
Yeah, of course.
Like,
I'm not
he's-
an idiot.
he's
That's
such a,
the.
What?
I mean, I didn't suggest you were.
Yeah, but like
That being
I think
said,
we all...
like that story is told from the perspective of a child who's like, and then I did this, and then I had sex with all these beautiful women who
And
were
then
like,
that was when I banged my 5th supermodel.
Yeah.
And then I was there with but my favorite thing is like this air hostess was like, yeah, no, he smelled really bad, and and then he followed me to my
Yeah,
house,
yeah.
and then he went to my parents' house and like across the country, and then he stayed there, and then he stole from them, and I'm like,
yeah.
so charming. God damn it! How did he do it?
well, it's like, oh, but I did this, and then he wrote and he writes all these books about how he's with con man, and he does these talks, and like these sort of security guys and cops were watching these, going, that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh.
But he is a great con man in that he conned people into thinking
believing
that he
it,
was
yeah.
a
I mean,
con man.
the
The
fact-
ultimate con.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
it's a long con.
either way, I mean, that is the longest of cons, really. And he's made so much money.
So much. He was
Yeah,
doing a
yeah.
talk in Google like not that long ago. Like
I know.
in Dublin, maybe 3 or 4 years ago.
I'm like,
And they
how?
announced it, and everyone in the comments was like, "This guy is not real."
Highest level of grifting imaginable.
Yeah.
Who approved this?
How about you
Like,
Yahoo his name and see what comes up?
Yeah.
This is a very niche reference, but have you started watching Lost yet?
Mm-hmm.
Lost?
Oh, restarted? No,
Yeah.
no.
Oh god damn it! There's
on the
such a
list.
stupid, funny scene where. Have you seen Lost?
Many years ago.
Many years ago.
From the past. Yeah.
Sawyer has like
Is he looking up things on Yahoo?
his dad was killed by a con man or something, and it's John Locke's
Ever
dad.
since then, I've hated con
Genuine,
men.
but there's a scene where he's there with the guy.
I've hated murderers ever since a murderer murdered my dad.
It's such a funny scene because the guy's like tied to a chair. He's like, I was down in Missouri running a con, and he turns around. He's like, did you say con? It's so funny. Yeah, he used to be a con man. in
Did
that
you
region.
say my father?
Did you say my
Dear
backstory?
Mr. Sawyer,
Yeah.
you was like you
Yeah,
killed my
yeah.
dad. He's got the wee letter that he wrote as a
He's got the
child,
wee
and you're
letter,
like,
yeah.
what the?
And that's the
Worst.
guy. He's like, but he knows it's him based on nothing other than he said con.
I just,
Did you say? I'm gonna find that clip, and it's so good.
I'll start next week.
It's way into the show, but it's brilliant.
oh, I don't think I've got the energy to watch Lost again. I
Yeah.
just, it's like watching Game of Thrones. It's like I get to a point where I'm like, I don't think I need to watch that last season.
yeah.
When my girlfriend just finished it again. She loves it, and I was like, I'm terrible at anything over like 3 seasons. I don't want to make the commitment to it, and it's because as soon as I do, that's all I'm watching.
You
And
Yeah.
the show or your girlfriend?
Whoa. No, close enough. This should have really been more of a mini series.
Yes.
You know, sequels are better when you've left 20 years between them. You want to see how the characters develop.
And 20 years later, it's time for a reboot.
Yeah, we're going same original male lead,
Yeah.
20-year-old woman.
This time it's your daughter.
In the movie or in real
anyway.
life, both.
An aging, unsuccessful comedian tries to escape Ireland and several court cases. He moves to Texas. Anyway, this is they were in the end run now. I can't remember what the last thing I said was. Oh yeah,
he's got his wee palace going on. He's in the British. No, he's in the British territory.
They let him retire in the British territories because they respect him so much. But all that respect is worth nothing because he gets a fever within the next year and dies, as is the style at the time. So he's buried in Residency Cemetery, which I'm just realizing now is a very funny name for a cemetery.
Yes. Wait, what's it? Oh, it's a residency.
It's
what?
In the cemetery. So
I'm here all the time.
Just before he died, he'd met a biographer, William Franklin. So he gave him his entire life story. So all the stuff we know about him mostly comes from his own retelling of his.
And then like there are some sort of people documenting certain wars and things that were happening in certain conflicts. Yeah. So we can kind of overlay them with that.
Yeah, and there's money exists.
There's money, yeah. So so we know that definitely bits of it happened. Yeah. We're just not entirely sure if it happened the way he said it did.
Sure.
I mean, he wouldn't be the first Irishman to tell a tall tale, in fairness.
No. But there's bits of, there's a museum. So basically his house is now a museum. Mm-hmm. And they've got some bits of evidence. But yeah, a lot of it is hard to tell. He skipped over a lot of details of his early life, which is where a lot of the flowery sources are like, maybe he dreamed of being an Indian Raja.
So did Jesus.
Yeah, that's
so
true.
if you want to drag that up, fine.
They are maybe around the same age. But so he tells this guy Franklin his whole story, who publishes it in 1805 with the name Military Memoirs of George Thomas, which is fairly succinct for book titles at the time.
Yeah. I mean, it's bifollowly, and it's it's I always find it funny that it's like his surname is Thomas.
Yeah.
Like of all like I feel like his name was George Thomas something
else.
Sure.
Yeah.
Like but it's been shortened to be more British sounding by the biographer. Because I feel like George Thomas Murphy or whatever, it just feels like Thomas just feels like a very non-Irish farming surname.
Get you, yeah.
Well,
like,
it's a Welsh name, right? Like
for like being in Tipperary, which is isn't that pretty central?
Yeah,
they're pretty central to the country, so it feels like.
Yeah.
I mean, that being said, the plantation. Well, no, because the plantations would have been, mostly Protestant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is Roscrea on the west side or the east side?
We'll have a look.
It is. Zoom in there.
Zoom in on the tiny map of Ireland.
But yeah, you're right. Like George Thomas is an unusual name. It's because there's so much room for basically you're relying on him retelling his own story, which is dodgy enough, and then you're relying on this guy William Franklin. He published the story 6 years after he died, I think. And what are his biases? Maybe he made it a bit more Englishy. But that's him. That's pretty much the story of him. It's what are the wrap up bits? Georgia Jazraga is still there. It's a village of about 5,000 people, which I think by Indian standards means it doesn't exist. That's basically zero. James Skinner, famous another British military guy or whatever who fought against George. He moved into George's house after he died, which is now his museum. And yeah, that's pretty much it. There's a story that's very similar called The Man That Would Be King by Rudyard Kipling, which is now, well, I say now, a film from the 70s. Which,
it's now a film. Well, I mean, it was made 50 years ago, but it's fairly recent compared to the life of George.
Sure.
So you think like Kipling just didn't credit him?
I don't know. I haven't read the Kipling story, but I think I think that this is not, this was happening.
It's like inspired by previous events, or inspired by. Inspired by means I heard a story sometime and then I added it. It's like the Jungle Book.
He wouldn't have been the only guy that because a lot of these people are, as we said, being press ganged into the military, brought against their will to India. If you get out, if you escape from the Navy, you can go anywhere and you can go further and further up into the...
I mean, as long as you're willing to learn the language, you're kind of good.
Yeah.
But it's like that Irish guy. I can find like one paragraph about him, and that's all that's on the internet. But of some dude who had like 100 kids on like Fiji. They'd found him like 200 or 300 years ago. He's just some Irish dude who just managed to find his way out there. Only white guy on the island. They were like, he's covered in tattoos, just having sex with everyone. They thought he was a god. And he was like, my only aim in life, to get to over 100 kids.
You need to have
And
goals.
then who like noted that down just kept sailing, and they're like, leave him at it. Fair enough.
Yeah.
I must look this up now. I must
That's
find
basically the whole
it.
story.
Yeah. But if you do the research, come back on and tell us.
Yeah.
I'll be like, it's me again. And you're like, oh God, she doesn't shut up. And she keeps talking about stuff that's happening elsewhere.
We'll get you back in for we'll talk about Lizzie Halliday and the guy from Fiji and whatever. Well, sure. Do you want to plug anything? When you've got best of luck with the podcast awards.
Oh well, I'd like
Listener's
to plug
choice.
my podcast. Who did
Yes.
what now? You should listen to it because I might talk a lot, but I'm also quite funny. So
Yes,
you will learn things, and you will get very angry at people. So it's a win-win.
it's beautiful. So yeah, we'll link that in the episode description. And thanks a million for coming on.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me.
No
Cheers.
problem. Cheers. Right. Good luck.
Shafter.